Welcome to the United Nations Environment Program and the United Nations Resident Coordinators Knowledge and Experiences Exchange Clinic, where we harness innovative environmental solutions for sustainable development in Africa. At the clinic, you will sample United Nations Environment Program's products and initiatives in Africa that address the triple planetary crises. You will also be able to identify opportunities for increasing collaboration between the United Nations Environment Program and the United Nations country teams to address environmental challenges in Africa. The United Nations Environment Program is the leading global environmental authority that sets the global environmental agenda, promotes the coherent implementation of the environmental dimension of sustainable development within the United Nations system, and serves as an authoritative advocate for the global environment. Headquartered in Nairobi, Kenya, UNEP works through its divisions, regional offices, liaison and outposted offices, and a growing network of collaborating centers of excellence. In the Africa region, UNEP works through its Regional Office for Africa, providing services to all the 54 African countries with decentralized physical office presence in 6 locations.
In support of the African countries' efforts to address their environmental challenges, the UNEP Africa office has significantly strengthened its engagement with the UN country teams and the UN resident coordinators. We now have 25 focal points covering the 54 countries in the region. We have completed 40 national environment summary reports, and the remaining 14 country national environment summary reports are ongoing and will be ready by the end of the year. The national environment summary reports have provided evidence-based engagements for the environment and improved the positioning of environment in the UN Sustainable Development Cooperation frameworks. To assess the country national environment reports, please contact your UNEP country focal point. Details of the UNEP country focal points are available at the Africa office desk at the United Nations Environment Program and at the United Nations Resident Coordinators Knowledge and Experience Exchange Pavilion.
In 2024, 13 countries are developing new cooperation frameworks. 8 of these countries are in Africa. Our focal points have engaged in developing these frameworks through common country analyses and participation in scoping workshops and group meetings.
UNEP has also strengthened its direct engagement with the member states in Africa. To this end, UNEP has facilitated the establishment of regional institutional forums such as the Africa Forum of Heads of Environment Protection Agencies, provided regional scientific assessments and outlook reports such as the Africa Environment Outlook for Business and the Atlas of Africa's Natural Capital, and supported 17 countries assess their SDG progress through their national level voluntary national reviews.
UNEP has continued to increase its portfolio of interventions in the region. The value of all UNEP projects in Africa is now estimated at $542 million. The GEF leads by close to some $338 million, followed by the GCF at around as $81 million. Over 10 funding partners are backing UNEP's work in the region.
Drawing from national development plans, UN Sustainable Development Cooperation frameworks, national biodiversity and action plans, and national environment summary reports, among other key periodic national instruments, UNEP has mapped country priorities to inform its strategic interventions and responsiveness to the continent's priorities. We leveraged the country focal points to map each country priorities for the environment. In climate adaptation and resilience, forecasting climate risks and disasters is the most pressing issue, followed by building resilient food systems and adaptation in the sectors of water and other land-based resources. In relation to climate mitigation, Adoption and utilization of clean and renewable energy solutions is the most pressing need, followed by transport sector reform. Regarding nature action, biodiversity loss is the most pressing problem, followed by deforestation, land degradation and desertification, and then conservation and protection of wetlands and freshwater resources. With regard to chemical and pollution action, addressing hazardous chemicals and waste appears top of the region's priorities, followed by the management of plastics and other solid waste, and then air quality management. Concerning the science policy interface, strengthening early warning systems is the most pressing challenge, followed by the need to address institutional gaps, and then the need to strengthen global and regional cooperation for science policy, integrating local and indigenous knowledge systems to generate data and information also remains a challenge. And with regard to environmental governance, policy coherence is the greatest challenge, followed by fragmented or sectoral responses to environmental challenges, and then inadequate finance, the technical capacity for compliance, and enforcement of environmental laws.
First, I would like to extend sincere thanks and appreciation to the UNEP Executive Director, Inger Anderson, and the entire UNEP team for inviting us, especially the resident coordinators coming from over 20 countries around Africa, to participate in this important meeting. Going back to Rosie's introductory remarks, let me add that the United Nations Environment Programme has been a key player in the Africa Regional Collaborative Platform, the RCP, the mechanism that unites all UN regional entities partnering with the 54 African countries to realize the 2030 Agenda and the SDGs, as well as Agenda 2063 and the Africa the world needs. The RCP is chaired by the Deputy Secretary General, with the Vice Chairs being the Executive Secretary of the Economic Commission for Africa and the UNDP Regional Director for Africa. The membership of the RCP is comprised of all the regional directors of agencies, funds, and programs operating in Africa. We have 6 opportunity and issue-based coalitions, we call them OIBCs, under the RCP Africa. UNEP is a co-convener of OIBC 4, together with FAO, ECA, and UNDP, focusing on climate change and resilience, including loss and damage adaptation, food systems, and food security. Through OIBC 4, UN country teams have been supported to provide policy advice, technical assistance, advisory services, advocacy, and programmatic support to address key environmental challenges of regional concern that transcend country boundaries. Specifically, the coalition has built capacities of young African women as African group of negotiators in the various COP preparatory processes, produced a policy brief on carbon markets to improve understandings and explore opportunities in Africa, published strategic reports on adaptation, financing, and gender and climate action, launched the Early Warning for All initiative of the Secretary General in 7 African countries, provided technical advisory for sustainable agricultural production. OIBC also developed a national post-harvest management strategy in Liberia, supported national food systems transformation in the DRC, Madagascar, Malawi, Mozambique, and Zimbabwe, reviewed Rwanda's strategic plan for agricultural transformation, and indeed extended in-person expert support to the UN resident coordinator and UN country team in Egypt during the period leading up to and during COP27, which was held in Sharm el-Sheikh. I encourage the resident coordinators to use this opportunity to engage with UNEP and other OIBC co-conveners to identify areas of partnership and support in support of country-level efforts when it comes to climate action.
To achieve the Sustainable Development Agenda in the continent, UNEP and the UNCTs must increase their level of engagement. We need to increase our level of participation in the Africa Regional Collaborative Platform through the opportunity and issues-based coalitions. Let's make use of the national environment summaries in developing interventions at the country level. UNEP country focal points will also play a significant role in providing the much-needed information and data at the country level. Let's strengthen their involvement in common country analyses and in the development of the UN Sustainable Development Cooperation Framework. Together, the United Nations family is stronger.